The massive ships appeared over Earth without warning. They were nothing like the sleek vessels from human movies. These ships looked like floating crystals the size of mountains, casting strange shadows across entire cities. People stopped on streets and pointed at the sky. Some screamed. Others just stared. In New York, Maria Santos stood at the window of the United Nations building. As Secretary General, she had dealt with many crises. Wars, famines, economic collapses. But nothing like this. Her phone buzzed with calls from world leaders. Everyone wanted answers she didn't have. The alien ships had been silent for 6 hours. Then, suddenly, every screen on Earth lit up at the same time. Television sets, computer monitors, phone screens, even digital billboards. All showed the same image. A being stood before them. It was tall, maybe 10 feet, made of what looked like living crystal. Light moved through its body like blood through veins. When it spoke, the voice came from everywhere at once. "Humans of Earth," the creature said. His voice was cold and formal. "I am Ambassador Zethkari of the Galactic Council. Your species has been observed. Your rapid expansion and aggressive nature pose a threat to galactic peace." Maria felt her heart racing. Around the world, billions of people watched in stunned silence. The Galactic Council represents 847 civilized species, Zethkari continued. "We have maintained order for 50,000 of your years. Your species violates every principle of cosmic harmony." The alien paused. Images flashed across the screens. Human wars, pollution, nuclear weapons. Then images of peaceful alien worlds with crystal cities and floating gardens. "You multiply too quickly. You consume too much. You fight too often. In less than 1,000 years, you have gone from primitive agriculture to space travel. This speed of development is dangerous. Other species required 10,000 years for such progress." Maria watched the faces of her staff. Some looked terrified, others angry. A few seemed oddly calm, as if they had been expecting this. Therefore, Zethkari's voice became harder. "The Galactic Council issues this ultimatum. You have 72 of your hours to surrender unconditionally. You will disarm all weapons. You will submit to Council governance. You will accept population controls and technological limitations. The crystal being raised what might have been an arm. If you refuse, our fleet will cleanse this world. We have done this before with other problematic species. We take no pleasure in it, but galactic stability requires firm action." Images appeared of dead worlds, burned cities, empty planets orbiting distant suns. "Do not mistake this for negotiation," Zethkari said. "This is mercy. We offer you life under council rule instead of extinction. Choose wisely." The screens went dark. For a moment, the world was absolutely silent. Then Maria's phone exploded with calls. The President of the United States, the Prime Ministers of Britain and India, the leaders of China and Russia. Everyone was shouting at once about military responses and evacuation plans. But Maria wasn't listening. She was thinking about something strange. In all those images of Earth's supposed crimes, she had noticed something. The alien cameras had captured things they shouldn't have been able to see. Military bases that were supposed to be secret. Weapons programs that were classified. Almost as if, "Ma'am?" Her assistant, David, appeared at her elbow. "The emergency session is ready. All world leaders are connected." Maria nodded but didn't move from the window. "David, who handles our space monitoring programs?" Several agencies. NASA, ESA, the space commands. "Why?" "Get me Dr. Elena Vasquez from the Deep Space Research Division." David looked confused. "Ma'am, shouldn't we focus on the military response?" "The aliens are expecting an answer." Maria finally turned from the window. For the first time since the ships appeared, she smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just figured out the answer to a very difficult puzzle. "Yes," she said. "They are expecting an answer. And I think I know exactly what to tell them." 2 hours later, representatives from every nation on Earth gathered in the UN Assembly Hall. But this wasn't the panicked chaos everyone expected. Maria had spent those 2 hours making very specific phone calls to very specific people. Now she stood at the podium, looking remarkably calm. "My fellow humans," she began, her voice steady. "We have received an ultimatum from beings who call themselves the Galactic Council. They demand our surrender in 72 hours. Murmurs filled the hall. Some angry, some fearful. But before we respond, Maria continued, I want to share something interesting. The alien ambassador showed us images of our world. Images that were remarkably detailed. Images of places they shouldn't know about. She gestured to a screen behind her. It showed a comparison. The alien footage on one side, satellite images on the other. Either these aliens have been watching us much longer than they claim, she said, or we've been watching them longer than they think. The murmurs stopped. The hall became very quiet. I've just finished speaking with Dr. Elena Vasquez from our Deep Space Research Division. She had some fascinating things to tell me about meteorites that weren't really meteorites. About atmospheric phenomena that didn't follow natural patterns. About technological advances that came from studying very interesting debris. Maria's smile grew wider. Several people in the audience were smiling now too. People who had been making secret phone calls of their own. So here's what we're going to do, Maria said. We're going to send Ambassador Zethkari a response. We're going to thank him for the warning. Because that's what this really is. Not an ultimatum. A warning. She looked directly into the cameras that would broadcast her words to the world. We're going to tell him that humanity appreciates the Galactic Council's concern, and that we look forward to a more detailed conversation about the future of galactic relations. The hall erupted in confused chatter. Maria raised her hand for silence. And then, she said, her voice carrying clearly over the noise, we're going to show them exactly what humanity does when someone threatens our home. As she left the podium, Maria was still smiling. Around the world, certain military bases began powering up systems that had been waiting in darkness for decades. Research facilities activated protocols that had been gathering dust in classified archives. The 72-hour countdown had begun. But somehow, humanity didn't seem worried at all. 60 hours remained until the deadline. Around the galaxy, other species watched Earth through their monitoring systems. They expected to see panic, mass evacuations, desperate military preparations. Instead, they saw something impossible. Children walked to school as usual. In Paris, street musicians played jazz on corners. In Tokyo, office workers grabbed coffee before catching trains. Social media exploded not with fear, but with memes. #Alien Ultimatum was trending, filled with jokes about cosmic HFY complaints and galactic currents. Ambassador Zethkari studied the reports from his ship high above Earth. His crystal body pulsed with confusion. In every previous encounter with primitive species, the response had been predictable. Either immediate surrender or chaotic military buildup. Earth was doing neither. Commander, he called to his aide, a floating jellyfish-like being from Altair Prime. Are the humans perhaps too primitive to understand our message? No, Ambassador. Our translators confirmed the message was properly understood. They are simply continuing their normal activities. Zethkari's light patterns shifted to indicate frustration. In 50,000 years of Council operations, no species had ever responded to an ultimatum by making jokes. But beneath Earth's calm surface, something else was happening. something the alien observers couldn't detect. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in an elevator that didn't exist on any building plans. It descended far below the basement of the Smithsonian Natural History Museum. When the doors opened, she stepped into a facility that had been hidden for over a century. The corridor stretched for miles underground, lined with laboratories and workshops. Scientists and engineers moved between rooms with purpose. These weren't the scattered emergency response teams the aliens expected. This was an organization that had been preparing for this moment for generations. "Elena!" A voice called from behind her. She turned to see Dr. James Chun, the project's lead physicist, jogging to catch up. "We've got confirmation from all sites. London, Moscow, Beijing, Sydney. Everyone's online." Elena nodded. "Pandora protocols are active?" "As of 30 minutes ago. We're in full awakening mode." They walked together past laboratories filled with strange technology. Devices that hummed with energies unknown to Earth's public science. Computers running calculations that would have seemed impossible just days before. "How long have we known?" James asked quietly. It was a question that had haunted him since joining the project 5 years ago. "The first crash was 1908, Elena replied. "Tunguska. We told the world it was a meteor, but the Russian team found wreckage. Crystal technology, just like what we're seeing now. By 1947, we had established formal recovery protocols. Every meteor that didn't burn up completely, every atmospheric phenomenon that left debris. We collected it all." They stopped at a massive window overlooking the facility's main laboratory. Inside, dozens of scientists worked on devices that looked almost alien themselves. But Elena knew better. "The funny thing is," she continued, "we didn't reverse engineer their technology. We improved it. Took their crystal-based computing and made it quantum coherent. Took their fusion systems and made them more efficient. The Council thinks they're watching primitive apes. They don't realize they're looking at a species that's been studying them for over 100 years." James stared at the activity below. "How many people know?" "Not many. A few thousand worldwide. Presidents and prime ministers are briefed when they take office, but most choose not to interfere. Better to let the experts handle it." A communication device on Elena's belt chimed. She answered it with a touch. "Vasquez here." "Elena, it's Maria Santos." "Status report?" "All facilities are active. We're ready to proceed to Phase 2. "Excellent. I need you to know something. The aliens aren't just watching our public activities. They've been scanning our military bases, our communication networks. They think they're being clever." Elena smiled. "Let me guess. They don't realize our quantum entanglement network has been scanning them back." "Exactly. How much do we know about their fleet?" "Everything. Ship configurations, weapon systems, crew complements. We've been reading their encrypted communications for the past 6 hours." "James, bring up the tactical display." James tapped a crystal device that looked remarkably similar to the alien technology they'd seen on the broadcasts. A holographic image appeared, showing the alien fleet in perfect detail. 47 ships, Elena reported. Mostly Council security vessels. Standard crystal fusion drives, plasma weapon arrays, defensive shield grids. Nothing we haven't seen before. And our response capabilities? Elena's smile widened. That's where it gets interesting. Remember, we didn't just copy their technology. We built on it. Our ships phase in and out of normal space using dimensional folding drives. Our weapons penetrate their shield frequencies because we know exactly how they're generated. On the other end of the communication link, Maria was quiet for a moment. Elena, I need to ask you something important. Can we win? Maria, that's the wrong question. The right question is, can they survive what we're about to show them? Around the world, Similar conversations were happening in hidden facilities. In Australia, military engineers powered up fighters that had never appeared in any official aircraft registry. In Norway, submarine crews prepared vessels that could travel underwater, underground, and through dimensions the Council had never imagined. But the most important preparations were happening in orbit. Satellites that had been disguised as space debris for decades suddenly came online. Space stations that appeared to be defunct research platforms began moving with purpose. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the orbital platform. Humanity 1. To outside observers, it looked like an abandoned research station. In reality, it was humanity's first true warship, constructed over 20 years using reverse-engineered alien technology. Captain, his communications officer called. We're receiving activation codes from all terrestrial facilities. Full operational status. Jake nodded. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency. They had been training for this mission their entire careers. Not to defend Earth from invasion, but to teach the galaxy a lesson about underestimating humanity. Open a channel to the fleet, Jake ordered. Sir, what fleet? Our scopes show only the alien vessels. Jake smiled. Computer, execute revelation protocol. Suddenly, space around Earth came alive. Ships that had been hidden in dimensional folds appeared. Weapons platforms that had been disguised as asteroids powered up. The alien fleet found themselves surrounded by a human armada that shouldn't have existed. On the Council flagship, alarms began sounding. Zethkari rushed to the command bridge, his crystal body flashing with urgent light patterns. Report, he demanded. Unknown contacts appearing throughout the system. His tactical officer responded. 49 vessels of unknown configuration. They're using technology similar to ours, but different. How is this possible? Our intelligence indicated they had no space-based weapons. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet. Maria Santos appeared on their screen, still wearing that same calm smile. Ambassador Zethkari, she said pleasantly. Thank you for waiting. We've been making some preparations. I believe you said something about 72 hours? Well, you still have 12 hours left. We thought you might like to see what humanity does with advance warning. The transmission cut out. Around the Council fleet, human ships moved into formation with impossible grace. They didn't approach aggressively. They simply waited. Zethkari realized with growing horror that everything the Council thought they knew about humanity was wrong. These weren't primitive apes with crude weapons. These were predators who had been pretending to be prey, and they had been preparing for this moment for far longer than the Council had imagined. The deadline passed without a word from Earth. Ambassador Zethkari waited exactly 72 hours, then sent the attack order to his fleet. He expected swift victory against primitive weapons. Instead, he discovered that humanity had spent those 3 days studying every move his ships made. The first Council attack wave launched at dawn, Earth time. Plasma beams that could burn through mountains struck empty space. The human ships weren't there anymore. They had folded out of normal space-time, appearing behind the alien formation like ghosts materializing from another dimension. Impossible, breathed Commander Voltar from the Council ship Righteous Purpose. His species, the Altarians, had been spacefaring for 20,000 years. He had never seen anything like human combat tactics. The humans didn't fight like any known species. Council warfare was civilized, formal. Ships lined up in proper formations. Weapons were fired in calculated volleys. Damage was assessed. Truces were called to tend wounded. Rules were followed. Humans apparently had never heard of rules. Captain, Jake Morrison's voice crackled across all frequencies as his ship, Humanity 1, phased back into normal space directly above the Council flagship. Good morning, Ambassador. Hope you slept well. We certainly did. Before Zethkari could respond, the human ship vanished again, reappearing 2 light seconds away in the blink of an eye. The Council's targeting computers couldn't track something that moved between dimensions. How are they doing this? Zethkari demanded of his science officer. Unknown, Ambassador. They appear to be using quantum dimensional folding. But our calculations show this should be impossible with their technology level. What the Council didn't understand was that their technology level calculations were based on what humans had chosen to show them. Every crashed ship over the past century had been carefully studied. Every weakness in Council technology had been noted and exploited. The human ships moved like dancers, like predators, like things that belonged in nightmares. They attacked from unexpected angles, using weapons the Council had never seen before. But worse than their technology was their attitude. They were enjoying this. Humanity won to Council fleet. Jake's voice came again. We've analyzed your shield configurations. Very impressive. Unfortunately for you, we know exactly how they work. The human weapons weren't the crude kinetic projectiles the Council expected. They were quantum disruptors, designed specifically to collapse the crystalline shield matrices the aliens relied on. When they fired, Council shields didn't just fail. They shattered like glass. But the humans weren't trying to destroy the alien fleet. They were making a point. Council ship after Council ship found their shields gone, their weapons offline, their engines dead. But their life support remained intact. Their communication systems still worked. The humans wanted them alive and aware of what was happening. This is impossible, Zethkari transmitted to his fleet. How can primitives have superior technology? The answer came from Captain Morrison himself. Because we're not primitives, Ambassador. We're students. And you've been our unwitting teachers for over 100 years. On the Council bridge screens, impossible footage began playing. Human scientists examining wreckage from crashed ships. Human engineers reverse engineering alien technology. Human computers running simulations of Council battle tactics. Every meteor that crashed on our world, Jake explained conversationally while his ship danced around the Council flagship, avoiding plasma bursts with insulting ease. Every atmospheric phenomenon your scout ships caused. We collected the pieces. We studied them. We learned from them. The footage showed human laboratories filled with alien technology. But not just copied technology, improved technology. Fusion reactors that were twice as efficient as Council designs. Computers that processed information at quantum speeds. Weapons that could penetrate any known defense. You see, Jake continued, my species has a particular talent. We don't just adapt to survive. We adapt to excel. You gave us samples of your technology, and we made it better. Commander Veltar watched in horror as human fighters swarmed around his ship like angry insects. But these weren't mindless attacks. Every move was calculated. Every strike was precisely targeted. The humans fought with a combination of cold strategy and hot passion that no Council species had ever displayed. Why are you doing this? Veltar transmitted desperately. We offered you a place in galactic civilization. The response came from multiple human ships at once, a chorus of voices speaking in perfect unison. You offered us slavery. We preferred partnership. The human tactics became more elaborate as the battle continued. Ships would phase out of normal space, travel through dimensions the Council couldn't detect, then emerge inside the alien formation. They fought from above, below, and angles that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space. But the most disturbing thing wasn't their technology. It was their behavior. Council soldiers were trained for formal combat. Clean engagements with clear objectives and civilized conduct. Human soldiers fought like they were born for war. They laughed during combat. They made jokes while dodging plasma fire. They treated a life-or-death battle like it was some kind of violent sport. Humanity won to all ships, Jake announced cheerfully. Let's show our guests the Wellington maneuver. Zethkari didn't know what the Wellington maneuver was, but he was about to find out. Human ships throughout the battle zone suddenly accelerated toward the Council formation at impossible speeds. Just before collision, they all phased out of normal space simultaneously. For a moment, the Council fleet was alone among the stars. Then every human ship materialized inside the Council formation at the exact same instant. Not around it, inside it, occupying the same space as the alien vessels without actually colliding. Dimensional phase overlap, Jake explained casually. We can exist in the same space as you without touching. Very useful for close quarters combat. The human ships opened fire from point-blank range. With their weapons positioned inside the Council's defensive perimeter, every shot hit. Within seconds, the entire alien fleet was disabled. The Wellington maneuver, Jake continued, named after a human general who once said that the whole art of war consists of guessing what is on the other side of the hill. The difference is, we don't have to guess. We can simply appear there and see for ourselves. Zethkari's flagship was now completely powerless, drifting in space with its crew unharmed but utterly defeated. Around him, his officers stared at their dead instruments in shock. Impossible, the ambassador whispered. How did a species advance so far so quickly? Jake's voice came directly through their communication systems, even though those systems should have been offline. Ambassador, I think you're misunderstanding something fundamental. You keep talking about how quickly we advanced, but you're thinking about this all wrong. An image appeared on every Council ship's emergency screens. It showed the Milky Way galaxy with highlighted trade routes, communication networks, and patrol patterns. All Council territory, mapped in perfect detail. You see, Jake continued, while you were watching us, we were watching you. While you were deciding whether we were a threat, we were learning everything about you. Your technology, your tactics, your politics, your weaknesses. The image zoomed in on specific Council worlds, showing detailed intelligence about military installations, government centers, and industrial complexes. We've been inside your computer networks for decades. We know where every ship is located. We know the personal histories of your leaders. We know which species are unhappy with Council rule and which ones would support a change in management. Zethkari felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. True. Deep, existential fear. So here's what's going to happen, Jake said, his voice still pleasant and conversational. You're going to contact the Galactic Council. You're going to tell them exactly what happened here today. And you're going to deliver a message from humanity. What message? Zethkari asked weakly. Jake's laughter echoed through the disabled Council fleet. The same message you gave us, Ambassador. 72 hours to surrender. The difference is, we mean it. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The human fleet had not just defeated the Council forces, they had made them look primitive. In the halls of power on hundreds of worlds, emergency sessions convened to discuss the impossible reports coming from the Sol system. Ambassador Zethkari stood before the Grand Council Assembly, his crystal body dim with shame. Around him, representatives of 847 species waited for his explanation. How had a primitive world defeated the combined might of galactic civilization? Honored Council, he began, his voice barely audible. I must report that our assumptions about the human species were incorrect. Grand Chancellor Morden, an ancient being whose species had founded the Council 50,000 years ago, leaned forward from his throne. Explain. Zethkari activated a holographic display. It showed the battle from the Council fleet's perspective. Ships appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Weapons that pierced their shields as if they didn't exist. Technology that violated every known law of physics. They were waiting for us, he said quietly. They knew we were coming. They knew our tactics, our technology, our weaknesses. They had been preparing for this encounter for over a century. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembly. Representative Quintal of the Centauri Collective raised her tentacled arm. How is this possible? Our surveys indicated they had barely achieved spaceflight. They wanted us to think that, Zethkari replied. Every crashed scout ship, every damaged probe, every accident in their system over the past 100 years, they collected the wreckage. They studied our technology and improved upon it. The holographic display shifted to show footage that made several council members recoil in horror. Human laboratories filled with dissected alien technology. Human scientists working with devices that should have been beyond their understanding. Human computers running simulations of council military doctrine. This is what they were doing while we thought we were observing them, Zethkari continued. They were observing us. Grand Chancellor Morduna's ancient face showed the first signs of concern he had displayed in centuries. Show us their response to our ultimatum. The display changed to show Captain Jake Morrison's transmission. His human features were relaxed, almost amused. Behind him, the bridge of his impossible ship hummed with technology that was clearly based on Council designs, but far more advanced. Greetings, Grand Council, Jake said with a slight smile. Thank you for the 72-hour deadline. It was very considerate of you to give us time to make our final preparations. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The human's tone was not that of a defeated primitive begging for mercy. You wanted to know if humanity was a threat to galactic peace, Jake continued. Well, now you know. We're not a threat to peace. We're a threat to your version of peace. There's a difference. The image behind Jake changed to show a map of Council space. But this wasn't a map created by Council cartographers. This was a human intelligence assessment, showing the location of every military base, every shipyard, every important installation in Council territory. While you were deciding whether we were dangerous, Jake said, we were learning everything about you. Your military capabilities, your political structures, your economic weaknesses, your social tensions. We've been inside your computer networks for decades. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. Several representatives demanded to know how this was possible. Grand Chancellor Mordun raised his hand for silence. Continue the transmission, he ordered grimly. Dr. Elena Vesquez, would you please join me? Jake stepped aside as a human female appeared on the screen. She looked unremarkable by council standards, but her eyes held an intelligence that made several representatives uncomfortable. Honored council members, Elena said formally. I am the director of Humanity's Deep Space Research Division. I'm here to explain how your ultimatum was unnecessary. She gestured, and the display showed a timeline stretching back over a century. 1908, first Council scout ship crashes in Siberian wilderness. Humans recover debris. 1947, second crash in North American desert. Recovery protocols established. 1961, third incident provides intact computer core. First successful interface with Council data networks achieved. The timeline continued, showing dozens of incidents over the decades. Each one provided more technology, more intelligence, more insight into Council operations. By 1995, Elena continued, we had reverse-engineered your quantum communication systems. We've been monitoring Council transmissions ever since. We know about every military operation, every political decision, every strategic plan made in the past 30 years. Representative Zarketh of the Vegan Union stood abruptly. This is impossible. Our encryption is quantum-based. It cannot be broken. Elena smiled. It was the same calm, confident smile that Maria Santos had worn 3 days ago. You're correct. Your encryption cannot be broken. But it doesn't need to be broken when we design the backdoors ourselves. She gestured again, and the display showed human technology integrated into Council systems. Every software update your computer systems have received in the past 20 years included human design code. We didn't break into your networks. We built ourselves into them. The Council chamber fell completely silent. The implications of what they were hearing defied everything they thought they knew about galactic civilization. You see, Elena continued, while you were debating whether humanity was ready for contact, we were already in contact. We've been participants in galactic civilization for decades. We just chose not to announce ourselves until you forced our hand. Grand Chancellor Mordun stood slowly from his throne. In 50,000 years of Council leadership, no species had ever outmaneuvered them so completely. What do you want? Jake Morrison reappeared on the screen. What we want is very simple, Chancellor. We want the same thing you offered us. Complete surrender within 72 hours. The chamber erupted again. Representatives shouted in dozens of languages, their panicked translators struggling to keep up. Several smaller species delegates fled the assembly entirely. But unlike you, Jake continued calmly, we're offering terms. You can surrender the old way of doing things and join us in building something better. Or you can refuse, and we'll show you what humans do when someone threatens our home. The display shifted one final time, showing space around Earth. What had appeared to be empty space during the Bay Council's approach was revealed to be filled with hidden human installations. Weapons platforms disguised as asteroids. Shipyards hidden in dimensional folds. An entire military infrastructure that had existed undetected for decades. This fleet you sent to threaten us, Jake said, represents less than 1% of the Council's total military power. Our response represents less than 5% of humanity's defensive capabilities. We've been building up while you've been sitting still. Elena stepped back into view. The galaxy is changing, whether you want it to or not. Humanity is no longer content to pretend we don't exist. We're offering partnership instead of domination. But make no mistake, the old order is over. Jake's smile widened. You have 72 hours to decide whether you want to be part of what comes next, or whether you want to be remembered as the government that used to run things before humanity got involved. The transmission ended, leaving the Council chamber in stunned silence. Grand Chancellor Mordun sat heavily back on his throne. For the first time in 50 millennia, the Galactic Council faced a species that was not asking to join their civilization. They were demanding that civilization change to accommodate them, and the truly terrifying part was that they clearly had the power to enforce those demands. Emergency session, Mordun announced wearily. All military commanders, all intelligence chiefs, all species representatives. We have 71 hours to decide the future of galactic civilization. As the Council members filed out to begin their desperate deliberations, none of them noticed the small human communication device hidden in the chamber's quantum relay system. Humanity would know every word they spoke in their private meetings. After all, they had been listening for decades. Why stop now? 71 hours and 37 minutes after humanity's ultimatum, Ambassador Zethkari found himself once again approaching Earth. This time, he came alone, in a small diplomatic vessel. His massive fleet remained disabled in space, their crews watching helplessly as human ships patrolled around them like sharks, circling wounded prey. But something had changed in those 3 days. Reports were flooding in from across Council space of member species questioning their leadership. The Altarian colonies had declared independence. The Centauri Collective was demanding new elections. 36 smaller worlds had simply stopped responding to Council communications entirely. The revelation that humanity had been monitoring Council activities for decades had shattered something fundamental. If humans could infiltrate their most secure systems undetected, what did that say about Council competence? If a species could advance so far while being dismissed as primitive, what did that say about Council intelligence? Zethkari's small ship was escorted to an orbital platform that hadn't existed during his first visit. Humanity 1 had expanded overnight, growing new sections and docking bays through some kind of rapid construction technology the Council had never seen. The implications were clear. If humans could build this quickly, their military capabilities were probably growing by the hour. Maria Santos met him in the same conference room where they had first spoken, but everything else had changed. The walls now displayed real-time tactical information about every Council world. Economic data, military positions, political situations. Humanity had a better understanding of galactic civilization than the Council itself. Ambassador Zethkari, Maria said, gesturing to a chair designed for his crystalline physiology. Thank you for coming. I trust your 72 hours gave you time to consider our offer. Zethkari settled into the chair, his crystal body pulsing with dim, defeated light. Secretary General Santos, the Grand Council has spent these 3 days in emergency session. The situation is complex. Maria nodded sympathetically. I imagine it would be. Learning that your entire understanding of galactic politics was wrong must be quite a shock. How long have you been planning this? Zethkari asked quietly. Maria smiled that same confident smile. Ambassador, we weren't planning this. We were preparing for it. There's a difference. Humans have always known that eventually we would encounter other species. We hoped they would be friendly. We prepared for the possibility that they wouldn't be. Dr. Elena Vasquez entered the room, carrying a tablet displaying real-time intelligence from across Council space. I'm afraid the news isn't good for your government, Ambassador. 43 member species have formally requested Council leadership changes. 17 have declared independence. 8 are in active rebellion. Zethkari's light patterns shifted to deep purple, indicating profound distress. This is exactly what we feared would happen. Chaos, disorder, the collapse of galactic stability. No, Maria corrected gently. This is what happens when a government's authority depends on fear rather than respect. You rule through intimidation and secrecy. We're offering leadership through partnership and transparency. Elena activated her tablet, projecting a holographic display into the air between them. It showed a new map of the galaxy, but this one was different from any Council chart. Instead of rigid territorial boundaries, it showed voluntary associations, trade partnerships, and mutual defense agreements. This is what we're proposing, Elena explained. Not a galactic empire ruled from one world, but a galactic community where each species contributes their unique strengths. The display highlighted specific examples. The Altarians are brilliant engineers but lack artistic creativity. The Centauri Collective produces the galaxy's finest musicians, but struggles with technology. The humans, she smiled. Well, we excel at finding new solutions to old problems. Zethkari studied the projection with growing amazement. This level of integration would require unprecedented cooperation. The species you're describing have been enemies for millennia. Yes, Maria agreed. Under Council rule, they were forced to suppress their differences instead of celebrating them. We're proposing something different. What if instead of forcing everyone to follow the same rules, we helped each species become the best version of themselves? The display shifted to show specific proposals. Altarian engineering expertise, helping to rebuild war-torn worlds. Centauri artistic traditions spreading throughout the galaxy. human innovation sparking technological advances across dozens of civilizations. The Council maintained order through control, Elena continued. We're offering order through voluntary cooperation. The difference is that our way creates growth instead of stagnation. Zethkari was quiet for a long moment, processing what he was seeing. And if species refuse to participate in this new order? Maria's expression became serious. Then they're free to go their own way. We're not interested in forcing anyone to join us. But we also won't allow anyone to force others to submit to them. The hologram changed to show the current military situation. Human ships were positioned throughout Council space, not as occupying forces, but as peacekeepers. They were protecting rebel worlds from Council retaliation, while facilitating negotiations between former enemies. We're not here to conquer, Elena explained. We're here to liberate. Every species that wants to join the new galactic community is welcome. Every species that wants to remain independent is free to do so. The only thing we won't tolerate is anyone trying to rebuild the old system of domination. Captain Jake Morrison's voice came through the communication system. Ambassador, you should know that we've been monitoring Council military movements for the past 3 days. Several hardline factions are planning to use force to restore order. We've taken the liberty of disabling their fleets as well. Zethkari's crystal body flashed bright red with shock. You've attacked other Council forces? We've neutralized threats to galactic peace, Jake corrected. Same thing we did to your fleet. Everyone is unharmed, but their ability to wage war has been temporarily suspended while we sort out this political situation. Maria leaned forward across the table. Ambassador, I want you to understand something important. Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We want to save it. The display changed one final time, showing projections of what would happen under different scenarios. Council rule restored by force led to decades of rebellions and civil wars. Human domination led to stagnation and resentment. But voluntary cooperation led to unprecedented prosperity and growth for all species. Your council has ruled for 50,000 years, Maria continued. But in all that time, how much real progress has the galaxy made? How many new technologies have been developed? How many conflicts have been permanently resolved? Zethkari couldn't answer because they all knew the truth. The Council had maintained stability by preventing change. They had kept peace by suppressing growth. They had ruled through fear because they were afraid of losing control. We're offering you a choice, Elena said softly. Join us in building something better, or step aside and let others do it. But the old way is over. That's not a threat. It's simply a fact. Jake's voice came through the speakers again. Ambassador, we're receiving a transmission from the Grand Council. Should I put it through? Zethkari nodded wearily. Grand Chancellor Morden appeared in hologram form, his ancient features showing every one of his thousands of years. Ambassador Zethkari, the Chancellor said formally. Report your status. I am unharmed, Chancellor. The humans have been surprisingly hospitable. Morden's expression tightened. And their terms? Maria stood and faced the hologram. Chancellor, our terms are the same as they've always been. Partnership instead of domination. Cooperation instead of control. Growth instead of stagnation. And if we refuse? Maria's smile returned, but now it carried a hint of something that made even the ancient Chancellor nervous. Then you'll find yourselves increasingly irrelevant as the galaxy moves forward without you. We're not asking for your permission, Chancellor. We're offering you the chance to be part of what comes next. The hologram flickered as the Chancellor considered his options. Around the galaxy, his government was collapsing. His fleets were disabled. His authority was evaporating like morning mist. Finally, he spoke. What guarantees do we have that this new order won't become as oppressive as you claim ours was? Elena stepped forward. Chancellor, the only guarantee is that if anyone tries to dominate others, humanity will stop them. Just like we stopped you. That's not a threat to peaceful species. It's a promise to protect them. And who will stop you if you become the oppressors? Maria's laugh was genuine and warm. Chancellor, have you been paying attention? We've had the power to conquer the galaxy for decades. If we wanted to be oppressors, would we be sitting here negotiating with you? The truth of that statement hung in the air like a weight. Humanity could have revealed themselves at any time over the past century. They could have struck without warning. Instead, they had waited, prepared, and offered choices. Very well, Mordin said finally, his voice heavy with the weight of ending 50 millennia of tradition. The Grand Council formally dissolves its authority over member species. We accept humanity's proposal for a new galactic community.